Bhadrapadaye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha. Namaskaram, everybody. Today happens to be a VinayakI Chaturti. Yes, you got me right. VinayakI Chaturti. Some of you might know about it, but many of us have heard only of a VinayakA Chaturti, not a VinayakI Chaturti. So, let's see what this is all about. First of all, Chaturti is the fourth day, either after a full moon or a new moon. Full moon is what we call as Paurnami, and new moon is what we call as Amavasya. The full moon represents our fullness in bhakti or devotion, whereas the Amavasya represents our emptiness in the form of our knowledge, jnana, or special knowledge, scientific and spiritual, which is vijnana. So the fourth day after either one of these, whether it is a Paurnami or an Amavasya, the fourth day after either one of these, therefore occurring once in a fortnight, is a Chaturti, which essentially means the fourth day, literally also, and is in both cases special for our own lordship over all categories. Lordship, Isha. Categories, Gana. That's why we say Ganita is mathematics. So that which categorizes, which enumerates, that aspect of ourselves and our lordship over that, our command over that, we give it a form and call it Ganesha. The name Ganesha is associated with a cute little Lambodara, the one with a big belly, an elephant head, a trunk, Modaka in one of his hands, Pasha and Ankusha in two of his other hands, and the Ashirvadam Mudra in one of his hands, riding over a mouse. Amazing symbolism, right? And many of us are aware of the so-called Sankashtahara Chaturti occurring every month, the fourth day after the Paurnami. And we are also aware of, in one particular month, the Bhadrapada month, typically August, September, when the fourth day after a new moon is considered to be VinayakA Chaturti or Ganesha Chaturti. But the fourth day after the new moon is important not only in the Bhadrapada month, but all the 12 or 13 months in a year. Why do I say 13 months? When we talk of month, by its very nature, as I hinted yesterday, we refer to the moon. The word month gets its name from the moon. And therefore, when we talk of months, we have to actually refer to the lunar months. Lunar meaning anything associated with the moon. So the lunar month that we are talking about is basically from one Amavasya to another Amavasya for most states, but it's also in some states, especially northern Indian states, it's from one Paurnami to another Paurnami. In either case, it's basically a sum of two fortnights. So let's stick to the Amavasya to Amavasya month, and in that sense, we are talking of the fourth day of the month itself, because it's after the beginning of the month, which is on the day after the Amavasya. Or for those who are following the other type of calendar, Paurnami to Paurnami, also it's occurring once a month after the Amavasya of that month, the fourth day. Now, when we wish each other a Sankashtahara Chaturti, we know that from the very name of the word Sankashta, Hara, that it's essentially the troubles or kashta, that which occur in our lives, and there's no way to avoid them. Troubles are inevitable, but they can be hara or gotten rid of. So essentially, it's a troubleshooting process. When you go for repairing your TV or your mobile or anything else which is not working appropriately, you typically are with the service of a mechanic or an electrician who is doing troubleshooting for you. And many of you are familiar with issues with the computers or mobiles that you work on. You have a certain troubleshooting process. Now it's that troubleshooting which is what is called as Kashtahara. And when it is done in an auspicious way, it becomes Sankashtahara. That's a Chaturti which occurs the fourth day after the full moon. So that everybody is aware of. But what one is not aware of is that troubleshooting process can be done by the external mechanic on a Sankashtahara Chaturti or by oneself on a VinayakI Chaturti, which also occurs every month, the fourth day after the new moon. So why this difference? What is the speciality of a VinayakI Chaturti that distinguishes it from a Sankashtahara Chaturti? Well, both of them are associated with Vinayaka, which is again a principle. One meaning, of course, is Visheshanayaka or special leader. But more than that, it is the remover of obstacles. We call it as Vigna Vinayaka. Vigna as being that which is coming in the way of any sankalpa that we have taken to achieve a great objective. Great in our minds, it could be small to somebody else, doesn't matter, but something that we want to achieve, and there are obstacles in that path. And more often than not, it's unavoidable. These obstacles are what we call as troubles. Be they problems related to our wealth, problems related to our health, problems related to our relationships, problems related to our education, problems related to our career, problems related to our very existence, and non-existential problems as well. Those we make up in our own mind as a problem or as a trouble. Now, most of these are unavoidable because they are essentially the result of our own karma. We are responsible for creating them through wrong sankalpas in the past, not even sankalpas, but kalpas in the past. Because of our thoughts, words, and deeds, we have set into motion certain reactions, and those reactions are occurring as troubles. Sometimes, of course, they can occur as those which are welcome, but most cases they are unwelcome, right? So now you know that troubles are inevitable. That means unavoidable. So what the hell do you do with them? Just live with them? Well, that is one approach. But most of us want to shoot them out. Troubleshooters are necessary. How do we redeem ourselves out of this trouble? While trouble is unavoidable, inevitable, suffering from the trouble is completely avoidable, irrespective of what trouble it is. Be it a disease, be it a poverty, be it ignorance, be it even the trouble of not growing in our spirituality. All of these do not require us to suffer. Suffer is something we do optionally, and most of us stupidly, very stupidly and foolishly, choose the option to suffer rather than as an opportunity to take up this challenge. And when the going gets tough, the tough get going. But we aren't built up that way, or at least we don't recognize that we are built up that way. And so we think we are not tough enough for the challenge. But unless and until we are tough enough for the challenge would never ever come to us. And we have created it of our own volition through our own karmas, either in this life or in the previous lives, through our very own thoughts, words, and deeds. So we obviously have the strength, the potential, in fact, infinite potential, immense potential to handle all those troubles. So we can troubleshoot ourselves. And that's what VinayakI Chaturti is all about. And that includes one of its special cases as the VinayakA Chaturti in Bhadrapada Masa Shukla Chaturti. So all these Shukla Chaturtis are the 4th days after the new moon. That is basically the waxing phase of the moon. The 4th day in that fortnight. Every month. The 12 or 13 months that exist in a year. Why the 13th month or Adhika Masa sometimes is just like how you have a leap year once in 4 years, unless of course it's the end of a century. And therefore, you have a situation where you know that you are compensating for the motion of the earth around the sun with how the moon moves around the earth. One revolution of the moon around the earth is a month, and one revolution of the earth around the sun is a year. And you're making up a year, breaking up a year into various months. Obviously, it's not always going to be factored in exactly as an integer, and therefore those corrections are made once in a while. Leap year in the case of the Gregorian calendar, and you have in the case of the Sanatana Dharma's Chandramana or lunar calendar and the Sauramana or the solar calendar. Don't confuse this as linguistic with a Kannada calendar or a Tamil calendar and things like that. No. These have nothing to do with language. These have all to do with astronomical motions of what we are associated with. The earth on which we live, the moon, whose tides control the waters not only of the ocean but of our watery mind and the emotions and feelings. No wonder in hospitals for psychological issues, you have bigger issues during the high and low tides, during the Paurnamis and the Amavasyas, and there are ways to handle them. One is, of course, the Ekadashi fast, which occurs 4 days prior to an Amavasya or a Paurnami. So by fasting on that day, you are prepared for the peak of the feelings or emotions or Amavasya or Paurnami. That is one way to do it. Prevention is better than cure. But what if you have not done that prevention, or even if you have done that prevention and still it's not fully cured? Then you have the option the 4th day afterwards. 4 days before Amavasya or Paurnami is the Ekadashi for fasting and therefore prevent an issue. But once it has occurred, the 4th day after the Amavasya or the Paurnami is the Chaturti dedicated to Ganesha. The Ekadashi is associated with the Anahata Chakra and therefore our principle of prosperity and everythingness in the heart. And the Chaturti is associated with our own troubleshooting capability. So, what's the difference between again the Sankashtahara Chaturti and the VinayakI Chaturtis? Both of which occur every month in different fortnights of the month. Well, both are troubleshooting processes, that is the commonality. But where we access the troubleshooting process from is the difference between a Sankashtahara Chaturti on the one hand and a VinayakI Chaturti on the other hand. So, how do we access it? In the case of the Sankashtahara Chaturti, remember, it's the fourth day after Paurnami when we have peeked into our bhakti or devotion, into everythingness, and therefore we see the troubleshooting process come from outside of us, in the sense that the omnipresent divinity takes on the role of our parent and embodies itself in the form of a Sankashtahara Ganesha. That is the reason why Sankashtahara Chaturti is more ritualistic in nature, more bhakti in nature. You have just peeked into a Paurnami bhakti, and then on the fourth day, we utilize that devotion to troubleshoot for us. It's omnipresent divinity, and therefore there's nothing wrong in that. But if it is omnipresent, then what omnipresent means is present everywhere, and therefore that which is present outside us is present inside us as well. Where specifically? In the Mula Adhara Chakra or Mula Adhara. Mula root, Adhara basis. The root basis or the very foundation or the very source of us. And that's where the principle of troubleshooting, self-help or self-healing, if it is a health issue, self-study if it's an ignorance issue, and self-effort if it is a wealth issue or a relationship issue or anything else. They can all be handled from within us. Trouble is inevitable, it comes like breath, but then every inhalation has to be exhaled as well, and that's your troubleshooting process. It's your choice. Either utilize the Sankashtahara Chaturti by giving a form to the divinity outside of you, or to give a form to the divinity within you on a VinayakI Chaturti. And that's the speciality of today. You can utilize your sadhana and see that from the base of your spinal cord, where the Mooladhara or root basis chakra is there, or the intersection of the Ida, Pingala and Sushumna nadis, the nodal point from which we can access our immense capability to troubleshoot. We have created the trouble ourselves. Why not troubleshoot ourselves too? By utilizing the divinity that we are. Because the same divinity that is all around us is within us as well. And this particular aspect of divinity centered at our Mooladhara chakra is Ganesha or Vinayaka, and he, giving it a gender if you want, but actually it is a troubleshooting principle, a self-shooting of the trouble. Just like self-healing and self-study, all troubles which are inevitable can also be shot by our optional access to our own Mooladhara chakra at the base of our spine, not just in the physical body, which is just a mapping, but in our subtle body of the mind and intellect, as well as our causal body of our very nature of Atman or Brahman. So let us access that Vinayaki in our base of the spine, along with its powers of the Siddhi, the extraordinary powers, and the other power of the intellect, Buddhi, and of course, their cute little daughter of contentment or Santosha. Once you have these three powers, that is contentment, intellect, and the extraordinary nature of yourself, you're tapping into these three, troubleshooting is but inevitable as well. Just as troubles are inevitable, troubleshooting is inevitable too. But whether you access it from outside through a ritualistic devotion or through your own wisdom in the inner yogic and tantric sense, or both. Why not utilize both? These days, holistic health of utilizing Ayurveda along with allopathy and maybe even homeopathy and Siddha and yoga, Unani, combinations are possible, but too many cooks can spoil the broth. Make sure what you are most suited to at this point in time, at this point in your evolution. Some of you might be more suitable for bhakti, choose that. Some of you are maybe more suitable for jnana, choose that. Some of you might be more suitable for fruitless action, karma, choose that. Those of you who are more into yogic traditions, tantric traditions, choose the Raja Yoga path, the right royal path. But for most of us, it's the Sankhya Yoga or integral yoga, combinations of these which work, and therefore let's not lose any opportunity. And this is one such opportunity today, the VinayakI Chaturti, where we have just passed an Amavasya, peaking in our jnana, knowledge and wisdom just 4 days ago. We do that every month. And now the fourth day after that, we recognize our own troubleshooting capability within us at the base of, centered at the base of the spine, but present all over because it is omnipresent, it's infinitely present. Having recognized that, let us put it into action. So once again, remember, problems are inevitable, but suffering is optional, and to avoid that suffering, we can access the troubleshooter, Ganesha, either from outside through bhakti on a Sankashtahara Chaturti or on the VinayakI Chaturti from our own interiority, from a self-help perspective. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha, Jaya Ganesha Payimam. Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha, Shri Ganesha Rakshamam. Namaskaram.